You buy a printer for $50, then you go to buy ink, and ink costs $60. Wait, the ink costs more than the entire machine. How does that even make sense? It makes perfect sense. You're just not supposed to notice. Turns out, the printer was never the product, you are. Let's talk about the most expensive liquid in your house. Drop by drop, printer ink is more expensive than champagne. More expensive than fancy perfume like Chanel No. 5. More expensive than whiskey aged for decades. And yes, more expensive than actual human blood used in hospitals. One study found a single bottle of black HP ink works out to over $8,000 per liter. $8,000 for ink to print your boarding pass. So why is a tiny bit of colored liquid priced like liquid gold? To understand that, we have to go back to a razor. Over 100 years ago, a razor company had a genius idea. Sell the razor handle cheap, almost give it away, because the handle is useless without the blades. And the blades, you have to buy those again, and again, and again, forever. This is called the razor and blades model. Cheap thing first, expensive refills later. And printer companies looked at this and said perfect. The printer is the razor. The ink is the blades. This isn't a secret theory. The CEO of HP literally admitted it. He said the company loses money on every printer it sells. They want to sell the printer at a loss, because they make all the money back on the ink. In fact, over half of HP's entire profit comes from its printing division, not laptops, printing. So the cheap printer isn't a deal. It's a trap with a power cable. But here's where it gets sneaky. Because cheaper ink exists. Other companies make ink that fits your printer and costs a fraction of the price. Tests showed this cheap third-party ink prints basically just as well. So you could just buy that instead and save a ton of money, right? Well, the printer companies really don't want you to do that. So they put a tiny computer chip inside every official ink cartridge. This chip's job isn't to print. Its job is to check ID. When you put in a cartridge, the printer asks the chip, "Are you one of us?" If the chip says no, the printer can simply refuse to work. Non-HP cartridge detected. Print denied. It gets worse. Sometimes your printer works fine with cheap ink for months. Then one day it quietly downloads a software update. And after that update, the cheap ink you already paid for suddenly stops working. People woke up to printers that worked yesterday and were bricks today. The printer you own decided, on its own, what you're allowed to feed it. HP got sued for this, multiple times. They've paid settlements. They've been accused of building a monopoly on ink. They keep getting sued, and in many cases, they keep doing it. Their defense, they say the chips are there to protect you from hackers hiding in ink cartridges. Except investigators found basically no real-world cases of anyone being hacked through ink. So the security mostly protects one thing, their profit. And we haven't even reached the most insulting part. Your printer often lies to you about being empty. It flashes low ink or replace cartridge, while there's still usable ink inside. Tests have found a big chunk of your ink never even reaches the paper. It gets used up by the printer cleaning itself every time it wakes up. So you throw away a cartridge that's still part full, and buy another one, on purpose, by design. And then there's the final boss, the subscription. Now they don't even want to sell you ink. They want to rent it to you, monthly. Their own executive described it as locking the customer into a long-term relationship. A relationship with your printer that you cannot break up with. So let's zoom out. Here's the whole magic trick. Step 1. Sell you the printer cheap, even at a loss, so you feel like you won. Step 2. Charge insane prices for the ink, which you now need. Step 3. Use chips and updates to block cheaper ink. Step 4. Pretend the cartridge is empty early. Step 5. Turn the whole thing into a monthly subscription. It's not a printer. It's a slow machine for moving money out of your wallet. So what do you actually do about it? A few things. 1. If you print a lot, look at tank printers. You refill them from cheap bottles instead of tiny cartridges. 2. If you mostly print black and white documents, a laser printer can be way cheaper to run. 3. Be careful with helpful auto updates that exist mainly to block cheaper ink. And 4. Just know the game, because the moment you see the trick, it stops working on you. The cheap printer was never a gift, it was bait. And now, you're the one who knows it. Turns out, That's just how the world really works. If this changed how you see that little box on your desk, subscribe. We do this every week.